Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to Work Life Leader Live. This is Julie Cohen. This is the first episode of Work Life Leader Live in 2021. So thank you for joining us. For those of you who may be popping in for the first time, I am the CEO of Work Life Leader, which is a leadership development, executive coaching, and training organization. And I use this live platform to talk to really smart, interesting people about things that are relevant to effective leadership, professional success, and the intersection of work and life, work-life balance, work-life integration, depending on what you want to call it. So thank you for being here today. Besides this Work Life Leader Live chat, which we're having today, we also run a Work Life Leader Live book group and do Work Life Leader Live coaching. So I'm always looking for topics that you want to hear people talk about, books you want to discuss, and challenges that you're facing that we can help you resolve. So at any time, please share information in the comments about what's important to you in your work, life, and leadership. So with no further ado, I'm excited to introduce my guest today, Erin Owen. Hello, Erin.
Hello. So happy to be here, Julie.
Thank you. So Erin, I'm going to give your formal bio. So if I look down a little bit, you'll know why, but I want to make sure I get all of your experience. So Erin Owen has provided leadership and executive coaching for mid and senior level leaders and private business owners since 2004, including Wharton executive MBAs and full-time MBA students. Her work incorporates the latest research in neurobiology while uniquely drawing on Eastern philosophies and practices. Erin's coaching has always included a mindset component, but since the 2020 pandemic, the foundation of her work has focused on strengthening the mental fitness of her clients so they can cultivate greater resilience and impact even in the toughest of business environments, and I guess in the toughest of life environments also. So Welcome, Erin.
Thank you so much. Thrilled to talk about this. It's very timely with everything going on in the world.
Exactly. So that leads us to today's topic, which is resilience leading through challenging times. So again, I know I speak for me, this has been one of the most challenging times for me in all three of my realms, as a professional, as a leader, and in my life that's integrated with my work, my family life and my personal life. So I always like to start these conversations with an icebreaker. And so our icebreaker today, I'm going to ask Erin, it's funny, I just said Erin, my son is Aaron, you're Erin. I'm going to ask Erin about a time when her resilience was played a part in her life and when it's been served her. But before I do, I want to invite any viewers to start thinking about that also. When have you been resilient? How has it served you? So please share in the chat box, either share an example of when you've been resilient. And if you are watching live, today is Thursday, January 7th. It's about noon Eastern on the East Coast of the US. So if you're watching live, use hashtag live in your answer because I'll be able to see those. But please, even if you don't want to share a time when you're resilient, let us know you're here by just saying hello and where you're calling from. And you can put any of your answers in the comments. So enough introduction. We're going to dive into the topic. Erin, share a time when resilience really served you.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. It's very present for me because it relates to my experience with my family this past year. Before the pandemic and restrictions that we've all experienced, my husband and I had been hatching a dream to take our family abroad for a year and expose our two sons to different cultures. And we had decided in January, right before the pandemic hit, that we were going to go for it. We'd made changes to our work life, to the kids' schooling, so we could do it. And then with everything that happened in March in the U.S., it seemed like our dream was completely crushed. And I went into a depression. I really felt groundless. Like I couldn't figure out where was I supposed to take the next step in my life, personal life, work life, because the plan was shattered. But it was because I paused, I practiced what I know to cultivate greater resilience, that I was able to say, you know what? Let's look at what new opportunity and destinations and creative resilience can come from this experience. And I won't say too much more, but that'll give you a window into the year that I've had this past year.
Yeah, well, I'm going to come back because I want you to share what happened, because hearing about obviously a year sabbatical going around the world is pretty exciting. And I have a little insider knowledge about some of the things done. So I'm going to share mine, and then we're going to come back to you to let people know how it turned out as briefly as you'd like to, if you're okay sharing. So similarly, it's interesting. You use the word groundless. That was one of the things I noticed midway through this. So maybe like in May, June, I started feeling that groundless feeling, and it was palpable, and it definitely impacted all facets of my life. But I think it's easy, and I'm going to share a similar example to look at resilience through this pandemic. 2020, at the beginning of 2020, was set up to be a really exciting year professionally for me. My company has been growing, and this, for whatever reason, and kind of the investments that I've been making, we were going to be going to the quote unquote next level, whatever that means. But for me, in my head, it was the next level, and was about to sign a bunch of new contracts in March and April, and they all stopped, all of them. And my current clients continued, but what started out as just a very exciting year of expansion really stopped completely soon in mid-March. Like it was very drastic. And I'm a fairly optimistic person, so I was like, okay, we'll see. They said 2 weeks, and then 10 months later, we're still here. But what I found is after you talked about depression, but after mourning a little of this, like, well, I got to live within this. I decided, how can I use this time? And so actually this platform, Work Life Leader Live, actually really helped me, is when I got access to LinkedIn Live, which happened, I think, sometime in May, maybe. I was like, I want to just use this as a way to just do something new and challenging. And then I started looking for projects that were important to me to do that I never was able to do during the busyness of running a business and having a full life. But I think that was an example of me being able to using resilience that felt like it wasn't there for a while. So that's that.
No, and that's a critical skill or practice of resilience, is to say, no matter what's going on, how challenging, how difficult, what's the lesson I can learn? How can I get stronger from this experience? And so that the next challenge I face, like the next hill that becomes a mountain, I'm ready and prepared to scale that.
Yeah, good. So why don't you, before, I want to just say hi to a couple folks who've shared they're here. Hello, Carolyn DiLorenzo. It's good to see you with us from Arlington, Virginia, and Bill Hyman from my hometown, Elkins Park, PA. Nice to see you both. If you are here watching live, I'm here with Erin Owen, who is a mental fitness coach and a leadership coach and an all-around very wise woman. And we're talking about resilience leading through challenging times. So if you're here, please introduce yourself and share with us a time when your resilience served you, when you had to use resilience muscles to get through a challenging time. So I would love you to tell everyone, so what happened with your, this plan of this year journey that was kind of impacted significantly by the pandemic?
Yeah, so, version one briefly was a tour of Southern Europe, a month in each country, and then heading to Latin America and onward. And as we all saw, the epicenters of a lot of the outbreaks were exactly where we had planned to go. So we had to really scrap the plan and look at, okay, what can we do, right? What amazing opportunity might come from this we had never imagined. Now, my husband and I have long dreamed of retiring to Colorado, and we have good friends there. And so we reached out and said, hey, we're not likely going to be able to go out of the country. So any chance we could hang out at your place for a while, because they have an extra 2-bedroom place on their property. And they said yes. So we got to spend 6 weeks in beautiful Colorado at 9,000 feet, going outside, taking our kids, introducing them to hiking in the mountains, mountain biking, having the time of our life, something we would have totally not expected or planned to do during this time. And because thankfully for Wi-Fi internet, they could school online, we could work online, and we had an amazing experience out of this challenging situation.
That's great. Cool. All right. So let's get started. Again, if you're watching, please start thinking of questions around resilience, how it relates to leadership and professional effectiveness and your own work and personal life situation. And also share times either when your resilience muscles have served you or when you've been challenged and your resilience maybe you would have wished you were more resilient. So, but let's start, Erin, with what is resilience? Can you just kind of give us a simple definition and why does it matter?
Yeah, so resilience is your ability to quickly bounce back from any negative or difficult situation and come into that best part of you that can access your positivity, your creativity, your resourcefulness. Think of elastic, right? When you pull something elastic and snap it, it comes back into shape. So you come back to your best self. And resilience is critical, right? In your own life, you're going to face challenges in your household, in your work life, on the street, in a line. Challenges come up all the time that are unexpected. But in organization, right, you're one of many, many people. And when you can cultivate resilience, you can be a role model. And because of this thing in our brains called mirror neurons, you can actually positively engage and kind of become positively contagious to others to be resilient with you.
Great. So we're going to dive into you know a lot about the science as well as connecting this to leadership, and we will kind of peel that onion and dive into all of this hopefully. It's interesting. So resilience, I mean, how I see it kind of in the leadership and workspace, it has definitely been much more on the forefront in the last couple of years. It has with grit, and maybe it's more than a couple years. It's probably 5, 6, 7 years with, Angela Duckworth's work around grit. I can think back as a parent, my son who is now 18, I remember in preschool us talking about the importance of resilience for kids and how, we don't want to give every kid a trophy, and that's nice, but you have to make sure they can handle the difficult times. So to me, it has definitely moved from the personal parenting kind of developmental world now over whether it's 5 years, 7 years, into the world of work, and in the world of leadership. I mean, do you see that more? I definitely have people coming to me, hey, do you do any resilience training? That kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many changes in our environment that are unexpected, unplanned. And as an organizational leader, right, you're doing your best to plan cash flow, staffing, inventory, whatever that is that you manage. And when there are changes in the marketplace that disrupt your plan, you have to be nimble enough to take a quick look at the big picture, adapt using existing resources.
Yeah.
And it's becoming, I think there's a kind of an increased rapid change because of technology and innovation. So it's becoming more important that we all cultivate this as a core competency.
Right. And I want to get to that. How do we build our resilience? But I still want to kind of dig a little deeper on, let's look at why it matters at work and why it matters to a leader. Building on what you just said, change is not going away. It is continuing. It is going to be expedited. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what that law is called, but it's about how technology doubles in faster and faster timeframes. Mm-hmm. At one point, all of technology doubled in 100 years, then it was 50, and then it was 18 months, and now so we're not slowing down. We have to prepare ourselves for what's coming. So let's talk about the individual leader. I manage a team. I manage a project. I have to navigate through a pandemic and my business change. How does resilience show up?
Yeah, so at the core of resilience is being able to bounce back from negative emotions to access the positive parts of the brain and the body.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a human being as a leader, so you have to build awareness. You have to understand, how do you typically respond to situations? Are you somebody that has a stress response of freezing and not knowing what to do? Do you kind of lash out and take quick action that may or may not have a positive impact? Are you somebody that likes to run away and hide and hope that the problem goes away? But as a leader, you have to take care of yourself first, so that then when the challenges are hitting your team, and especially in the current conditions when we're not necessarily co-located, right? You have to read between the lines, reach out more often, and understand what your team needs. It starts with yourself, taking care of yourself, and being able to listen and respond more quickly to the needs of your team members.
Yeah. So let's talk about on the flip side. What happens? What does a professional, a person, a leader look like when their resilience muscles are not developed, or I think that's the question.
Yeah, so I have a lot of high performing, high intensity clients who are always pushing it as hard and fast as they can. And they've come up against a wall during this pandemic. They can't use the same tools in their toolbox that they could use when they were in the office setting. And they're shutting down. So I have to spend a lot of time with clients prioritizing, helping them decide what's really important to focus on and what can you let go of, and where do you really need to shift the time that you're spending with your team. What might have been a kind of walk by water cooler type of conversation to check in with your high performer may take a lot more concerted effort to ensure that that person is well resourced. They're also thinking about how to adapt within the new environment that maybe they can't thrive in the same way that they did when they used their most common tools in their own toolkit. And on. There's so many examples of how really high performing leaders right now are struggling because the conditions are not supporting what previously supported their highest level of performance.
Right. And so, it's interesting, from a coaching standpoint, I too am seeing that. And there's a need to kind of, it's kind of coming at it two sides of the coin. I need to acknowledge, yes, we're in times that are, the word unprecedented has been used, kind of in a cliched way, and yet it's
so fitting.
It is extremely fitting. And so because this is new for everyone, it's kind of shined a light on this competency or this characteristic. And for those who have been more resilient, I think kind of getting back on their feet again has been much easier. I we have some comments, so I want to go to the comments, but I want to follow up. So Laura Hammonds, hello, has shared just a resource, The Resilience Factor, written by Karen Ravitch and Andrew Schatt. I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with that book?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah. And then we have a comment from Sean Hasley, who talks about kind of resilience and some challenges. It's a long comment. Sean, for some reason, I'm going to try to show it. I don't think I can see that. Yeah, the whole comment isn't coming up. So if you want to follow up and put in some shorter text in another comment, what I want to pull out here is, you could have crumbled completely, but I realized staying the course of honesty was the best solution. So thank you for sharing that example. Sean, for some reason, however this platform works, I can't see your whole comment. So, but that piece of staying the course of honesty was the best solution is a perfect example of resilience. It sounds like he was in a very challenging situation and kept going. And that, it's funny. I liken that to willpower, but I know resilience is very different from willpower. And in some of the reading I've done around willpower, I've read that, willpower is finite, and it gets lesser during the day. And as the day goes on, that's why people often eat junk food at the end of the day instead of the beginning of the day. I'm curious about, again, you've used the term muscle around resilience. Does resilience stay with us consistently? Does it fluctuate? Because you talked about, again, the elasticity and the muscle. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so behind resilience, this idea of mental fitness, it's the model that I've learned and I use with my clients from positive intelligence. And there needs to be an initial period of disrupting existing neural patterns so that you can begin to respond to challenging situations in a different way. But once you've done that initial period of disruption, you have to continue to practice daily and practice throughout the day. So I know some people have a touchstone in their pocket to remind them, oh, pause, take a breath, what's important. Some people put a reminder on their phone, but there are actual practices that are used with this model so that you're continually reinforcing the new neural pattern, the new pattern of behavior that supports you and not getting hijacked by the negative emotions, but actually staying on course with what's important.
So you say something, I'm curious. So you talked about the touchstone. I'm trying to find mine. I cleaned my desk a little, and so I can't find all the junk that used to be here. I have something like that I'll sometimes, do exactly what you said if I want to get grounded or stay focused. But that reminds me of mindfulness. So and I don't know if you know this, but since it came up, I'm going to ask the question: how does mindfulness and resilience, like, is there a connection? Do they overlap? Is being able to be mindful, does that build our resilience muscles? I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, mindfulness and its variations are, one specialized kind of hundreds, if not thousands, of practices that can support mental fitness and resilience. One of the things that I've learned from my own meditation practice is that if I can find the time, sit in a place without distraction and recharge in that way, I'm generally, more positive, more resilient through the day, but it's not lasting. And if I'm in the middle of a difficult conversation with my son or with a team member, do I go off to the corner and sit and then go back to the conversation? No, I have to actually respond in the moment. So having a way to anchor yourself to, as Sean was saying, access what's most important, like your authenticity, what's true for you in the moment, is a critical foundational practice of resilience.
Yeah. Okay. And we're going to get to shortly. We have more comments, so I want to get to those, but I want to get to what are some of those exercises that we can do to build those resilience muscles. So we got hi, Ruth Kalinka. Nice to hear from you. And hello from Philadelphia. Hello back at you. And just a really nice comment. This has been a beautiful year of living our resilience and creativity. It showed how valuable and effective my practice of learning and growing from life challenges has been. Excellent. And speaking of Angela Duckworth, yay for the positive psychology program at Penn. Yes, always good to shout out to Penn. Any comments on Ruth's statement, Erin?
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish people in kind of frontline essential worker roles, like the challenges that they face. I have clients and friends who are medical doctors and nurses, on the front lines. It's intense to a degree that I can't personally imagine. And when they're not feeling completely overwhelmed, they can reflect and see some of the growth that they've had. But I'm really privileged to be in this position of doing work that I can do online with my clients from anywhere. And so the challenges that I face have not been of the same intensity as those that are literally fighting fires or doing police work in the streets. But the overall understanding is that no matter who you are, the role you're playing, the challenges that you're facing, every single difficult situation is an opportunity to cultivate what Ruth is calling, right, that resilience and creativity in the midst of challenge.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to pause. I want to reintroduce you, Erin. So first of all, I'm Julie Cohen. If you're watching live, this is Work Life Leader Live, and it is our first broadcast of the new year. It's Thursday, January 7th. Now we're approaching 12:30 Eastern US time. So if you're watching live, again, please say hello. Let us know you're here. I can see we have viewers here, and we're getting lots of great comments. So thank you for that. But Erin Owen is my fellow coach and friend. She is a mental fitness coach, and she works with high-performing leaders in all facets, but one of her focus is high-performing leaders who self-sabotage. And she's going to give you info at the end of our conversation about how to get in touch with her. But you can hear from her answers, her expertise on this topic, as well as many more. So let's go back again, and please share with us any questions you have, any comments. I'd love to share that and get as much of your input. Want to hear if you have any questions about your own resilience or resilience issues related to teams that you've worked on or are currently struggling with, please share in the comments and we will discuss them. This is a great way to get your responses addressed. We're here to do that. Couple things I want to say. Oh, we have a couple hellos. Hello, Lisa Kramer. Lisa's here, and Jeffrey Isaacs. Wow. I'll share that's a bit of my history. Another fellow Penn alum, a good friend of mine from college. All right, so with that, let's get back to resilience. And you talked about building resilience. And I know when we were talking about this topic, you were sharing some really interesting exercises on how we can build it. So do you want to share one, and then we'll see even if there's something if we can do now, but give us how we can build our resilience. One example, and we'll get to a couple more.
Yeah, sure. So first is to build awareness of the situations and people that typically trigger you to be knocked off your center, off your ground. Right? And that can involve literally 30 seconds writing down in the last 24 to 48 hours, when have you gotten irritated, angry, sad, upset? Is it, media? Is it people in your life? But write it down so that then you know what to watch out for in the future. So that's the first exercise.
Okay. Yeah. So like for me, sometimes if I have a conversation with someone who's close to me and, it's funny, I think Sean used the word trigger in one of his, in his previous post about, it's something that, some of these old patterns of behavior where we get, we think we know the other person's going to say something, and I can feel myself getting tense or kind of that fight or flight mode. I know that happens, but being mindful, okay, I don't want to go there, is very different than, but yeah, the media, watching the news, that's always knocks me off my game too. So those are just a couple. Any for you that come up?
One of my strongest teachers in my life is my older son. He's a teenager currently. And just knowing that we're so much alike that he can often knock me off my center is important. So I've learned so much from him and watching my responses to him. And I'm thank goodness for him. That's all I have to say.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely, again, I talked earlier, our children can be our greatest teachers. And I think parenting, for those who do have children, or even other relationships, there's a lot we can learn from those relationships that are then applicable in other facets of our life. I find, how I've grown as a parent, and where I've been challenged as a parent over 18 years, it's extremely applicable to, my work as a professional and my work as a leader and my work as a coach, helping people be more effective in all these realms. So I think the value and the challenge is pausing to be able to pay attention and kind of pull out those nuggets. So we'd love to hear from you. Any questions, comments, examples of resilience in action for you, please share it and we will talk about it. I'm curious if you're in human resources, if you're watching, and I see we definitely have a couple folks here that have some background in human resources. Curious if your organization has addressed the issue of resilience and how they're doing that. Can you give us another exercise that can build our resilience? So the first one that you shared was acknowledging when you get knocked off into those negative emotions or, away from positivity, documenting that, paying attention is again, that's the mindfulness muscle. Give us another one.
Yes. The second is to take note or write down the words that go through your head in those situations. You'll begin to understand the voices of what's called your mental saboteurs. This comes from the model of positive intelligence that I use for resilience. And you'll start to understand the lies that those negative voices are telling you that are feeding into the negative behaviors that really get in the way of resilience. For example, very, very common saboteur among leaders is a controller. When a controller is balanced and the strength side is showing, they're in control, they're very focused, they can positively influence others, see their path ahead. But when they're out of control, circumstances are not as they had planned, a lot of negative behavior comes out. They can be aggressive in their rhetoric, they can withdraw. And so again, know the words that are coming through your mind. Those are the lies that those negative, nasty characters are telling you, so you can begin to catch them in the act and stop them.
It's interesting that in one coaching model many years ago, and it's still used. There's always been the talk of the gremlin. That little voice on your shoulder that's whispering, the negative stuff in your ear that facilitate limiting beliefs. Is that sounds like it's the same thing you're talking about?
It's similar, yeah. And the research that's been done on what happens in the brain actually names 10 different mental saboteurs, and we all have a really strong judge. The judges ourselves, it judges others, and judges circumstances. For example, everything will be fine when it's 2021.
I know.
That's not necessarily the case, but that's a lie that a saboteur tells us. And so that there are other models that are similar, Julie, to your point. And I think that the biggest benefit is being able to identify it, catch it in the act, and then stop, so you can consciously choose a different behavior.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to build on that, but we got some comments that I want to address. Thanks, Sean, for the follow-up. And you use keywords: honesty, grit, and resiliency. And so that those are really important. Bill mentioned he's observed both as a parent and professionally that life experiences and small successes can be a wonderful opportunity to increase your resilience. So I assume it's being able to acknowledge that they're happening, just as we want to acknowledge when we are less resilient, or when that saboteur or the judger comes in. We want to acknowledge our success and how we step up. I assume that's part of the process, is what you were talking about. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And to his point, like we might resist difficult situations and want to run away from them, but each one of those small situations is a gift that we can learn from.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then Laura Hammonds mentioned, because I was talking about parenting, and spot on. I'm with you on this one. Is also supporting aging parents is another way where we learn, because I'm in that sandwich generation right now, so I'm doing both of those at the same time. There's a lot of places. Actually, Laura, I have to comment, and Erin, I think this is helping me. I'm actually feel like I'm building some resilience muscles in this conversation, because the challenges around kind of the actually more working with my aging parents as opposed to my child, that has actually kind of had a more profound effect negatively, as opposed to parenting, and has drained me in a lot of ways. And yet, if I can switch the story, I think that would really, I could see this as another way to build skills. So I think I'm going to really take that to heart. So another comment, and then I want to come back to you, Erin. Ruth just said, Erin, agree. In my experience, big challenges like so many of us have been facing this year offer us some of the biggest opportunities to grow and deepen our resilience practices. The decision to embrace that growth throughout is key. Excited to hear about your work. So that leads us to, can you give us another practice?
Yes. So there's a tangible practice that you can do that takes just 10 seconds. That's called a PQ rep. And again, it comes from this positive intelligence model. And there are hundreds of these, similar to meditation and mindfulness, but I'll teach you one right now. So take your thumb and first finger and bring them together and slowly begin to glide them one over the other, and bring more and more of your attention to what it feels like at the point where those fingers connect. What's the texture, the temperature? Notice the pace at which you're moving the fingers. Can you discern the ridges of the fingertips there? And then very quickly in 10 seconds, you've actually shifted your brain activity from the survivor, saboteur parts of the brain to what are called the sage parts of the brain. So you can access your resilience, your positivity, and creativity. So 10 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to pause and see, did anyone do this with me and Erin? I'm curious if you did this, if you noticed anything different. 10 seconds.
And I'll tell you what I find is that no matter where I am, I might think I'm in a relaxed mode. If I do one of these, my shoulders drop, my jaw relaxes. So no matter my state of being, then it has an effect.
So if you are watching live or you're watching the recording, do this and see what happens. If you have done it, and again, this is to me, instead of a mindful minute, it's a mindful 10 seconds where you have to shut down everything else. So it's a way to really get in the present.
Yes.
So did anyone do that? Anyone watching? Please share in the comments if you noticed any change, if your shoulders went down. All right. Laura said it starts to slow down the nervous system. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is exactly what you said. So you mentioned, it's so funny. I want to go on all these different tangents, and we have about 10, maybe 15 minutes left. So I'm going to tell you where I want to go, and you tell me where you want to go, because you know what we've talked about. So one avenue is to go. I want more tips. I want more of these PQ. What does that stand? The PQ?
PQ stands for Positive Intelligence Quotient, which is really a measure of your resilience, your mental fitness, and doing a rep increases that, strengthens your PQ.
Right. Okay. So one is I want some more, like another one of those. But the other thing I'm curious about is the model. You talked about the saboteur. You talked about the judger. So I'm curious about some of those other, what do you call those? Those other
saboteurs.
Okay. So they're all different saboteurs. There's different. So I'm curious maybe to hear, I'm curious to hear about maybe one or two other saboteurs too. So maybe we can make time for both.
Sure. So the judge is the number one, the strongest saboteur that everyone has. And then depending on there's an assessment you can take and tell you about later, but in depending on your strongest saboteurs, you'll find out of the other 9, which ones are the biggest culprits. And a really common saboteur I find among leaders is a pleaser. So a pleaser will go out of their way to say yes, to do for others without boundaries. We've all seen people like this in our lives. We probably had our own experience of being a pleaser. And when the pleaser has control, they end up being exhausted, frustrated, disappointed, and so on. Yeah. But underneath the pleaser is a strength, which is to really tune in, has strong high EQ, tune into others' needs and wants, incredible ability to relate and engage with others.
Yeah. So I assume from the model, if I'm guessing correctly, that each of the saboteurs has a strength underneath it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, that's, that is, with all of our competencies and skills and strengths, if we overuse them, we lose our efficacy. So it's really important for us to know our strengths and to moderate them so we're getting the best out of them. And it sounds like some of these PQ exercises will enable us to kind of be present and centered to see what's happening. I've got a couple more comments. Carolyn noticed her jaw relaxing when she was doing this, and Jill Goldstone, hi Jill, noticed that she was definitely more focused. So I'm curious, since we're watching, we have the judger, we have the pleaser. Can you give me one more?
Yeah, I mentioned previously the controller, but I'll give you a fourth, which is stickler. So stickler wants everything to be done exactly the way they think it needs to be done all the time. And, a great remedy for stickler is the 20-80 rule, right? Do some of these PQ reps, shift, right? As Laura said, the nervous system, relax the jaw, drop the shoulders, and come to that laser focus to say, what are the 20% of situations where it really does matter that it get done a certain way? And what are the 80% of situations that you can let go of? It's good enough. Okay,
so it's so funny. I'm already, so she, Erin has shared four of these saboteurs of the model. So let me see if I've got the stickler, the controller, the people pleaser, and
Judge is the big one.
So I'm a little concerned because I can identify already with three of those four. I'm not really that much of a people pleaser, but there's other three. I'm like, uh-oh, I better, be more mindful of when I move into those modes.
Yeah.
So since for those of you who are watching, do you relate to any of these saboteurs? If so, tell us how they show up. We'd love to hear that. And Erin might be able to give you some comments, or if there are people on your team, your manager, your boss, someone in your organization, how do these impact you and your resilience? So what about, can you give us another exercise like this or some other?
I can. I'll make a quick comment though about teams. Just like in partnerships or marriages, like we're often attracted to our opposites. So like a controller who wants everything to be, controlled in their way might attract a pleaser. So if you're a strong controller leader, you might unconsciously, subconsciously be hiring a lot of balancing people, but it can lead to really negative dynamics in the team that have to be addressed.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, we can do a visual PQ rep.
Okay.
So look at Julie, and Julie's going to look at me, but look at Julie, look at her hair, and really look at her hair. See texture, see depth of light, shadow play, color variation. See what you can sense in the lines of the hair. Notice anything reflecting off or getting absorbed by the hair. And just like that, in 10 seconds, you're shifting all of your attention to the visual sense. But again, shifting nervous system, shifting brain activity out of survivor saboteur brain to activate your laser focus.
Yeah. I was watching your hair doing the same thing. I have, speaking personally, I have a meditation practice that when I do it regularly, it serves me because I have that monkey brain. I'm always, go. And, just taking that, 7-10 seconds, I was just listening to your voice and doing what you said, that slowed me down.
And by the way, that's probably your restless saboteur.
Oh, so there's a fifth. So what is that? What if we have many? I mean, I assume most people have multiple saboteurs.
Yes. You'll scale, you'll find your results on a scale from 0 to 10, but most people have 2 or 3 strongest saboteurs. Right. And what happens is when you discover what they are doing, how they talk to you, how they lie to you, and you use the PQ reps to shift your brain activity, you not only weaken the particular saboteur you're working on, but you weaken all of them because you're changing your neural pathways.
Okay.
And I will say that what I've just taught you, this one, and also the visual, you can use in any difficult conversation with a team member, with a family member. Be in the middle of it, but also be shifting to your best self by activating this different part of your brain.
So are you saying while you're having the conversation, you do this?
Yes.
But not I'm not talking to you like this.
No, but I can be doing it right now. You can't see me. Right. And it's already dropping my shoulders, relaxing my jaw, shifting my brain activity. And we're doing so much online these days. You can be doing this out of sight and really being grounded, focused, and access your best self.
Great. Wow. That's really cool. So we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. So if you have other questions, it's time to get them in to Erin to talk about resilience, to talk about this model. She's going to tell a little more before we end the conversation about how to learn more about the model and some of the other resources. So I always like to kind of get to closing around, I use the term big rocks. What are the most important takeaways? So if what I'm taking away from this is how important it is throughout my day, my week, my month to, always pay more attention to how I'm showing up. Am I leading with my positive emotions and the results I want, or are some of those, saboteurs getting in the way? And the way that I keep mindful about that is that even finding, 5 or 10 seconds to get out of my head and to focus on another sensory avenue will serve me. Is that kind of a nutshell of what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. You're catching yourself and you're shifting your brain activity.
Okay. Now that sounds really great. Like I sound really smart that I kind of done that, but in reality, that's going to be hard as all, as everything in real time. I mean, now I'm concentrating on you and what you're saying, and you can't see the piles of junk behind me that, are calling me all the time. And so, I think that's what I'm most curious about is how do I take this intellectual awareness and put it into play? So can you share that? And then what you feel are, what are the most important pieces someone should take away from this conversation?
Yes. So first, build awareness of the situations in which you typically get triggered and knocked off center. If you want to know exactly which of your saboteurs are strongest, take the assessment. So you can go to my website. Do you mind if I give that now, Julie?
Yeah, no. So it's fine. So for those of you, again, as we're wrapping up, I know I didn't say this at first, when you told me, I was like, oh no, I'm not interested. Now I'm really interested in this because I didn't know about all these different, saboteurs, and I'm very curious which ones are my best friends. Yeah. So to continue this discussion with Erin, she's going to give you how to best reach you. So kind of combine that, how to reach you, as well as, what are the most important takeaways?
Yeah. So my website is my name, erinowen.com. And if you add to that /clients, CLIENTS, you'll come to a page that will tell you about this model and the link to the assessment. So it'll take you to the saboteur assessment. So build awareness of the situations, build awareness of which of your saboteurs are strongest so that you can identify the lies they tell you when you're in the negative mindset. And then begin to practice, right? There are free resources to practice PQ reps. I've obviously guided you through some. You can practice them right away. But ultimately, there is a course. It's kind of like a boot camp for 6 to 8 weeks because it does take that intensive initial practice for 6 to 8 weeks to change the brain. And when you do, you can literally see changes in the gray matter in the brain through an fMRI machine. So these changes are real. They're not something that you're just putting on the shelf and forgetting to come back to later on.
Yeah. What we'll do, we'll put that in one of the comments so you can see it, so people can link to it. If you're okay with that, you can give me that and I'll add that to the comments. Well, oops, let's see. We got another comment. Oh, Ruth Kalinka put it in the comments. There you go. Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate that. So I want to thank you. I feel more energized than I was starting out today, and feel like I learned a lot. And I'm going to really pay attention to my resilience in a more mindful way. I know I've always identified myself as resilient, and yet now I want to kind of keep building those muscles. So thank you, Erin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. Please join in for future Work Life Leader Lives. I post on Facebook Live, on Facebook and LinkedIn when these are happening, as well as the Work Life Leader YouTube channel. I'd also love to hear if you have any suggestions of topics you want to hear about, books you want us to discuss, articles you're interested in getting perspective from folks in the leadership space. We'll do that. So, or if you think you should be sitting here in Erin's seat and talking to me, let me know. I want to have conversations with interesting people about interesting stuff. So thank you all. Happy New Year. Wishing you a resilient 2021 that I know we can all use. Take good care, and we'll see you again. Thanks again, Erin.
Bye. Happy New Year.